All right, we're going to get a few more minutes for y'all to sign in over there. Then at 6:05, we're going to start the meeting. All right, we're going to call the meeting to start. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stand for the prayer.
If you'd join me in prayer. Father, thank you for this great county, and Lord, we pray for your guidance in our decisions this evening. We may always do thy will. Father, we know that there is always two sides to every decision, and Lord, we know in this sin-fallen world that every decision will never satisfy both sides. Lord, we ask that you be with everyone here tonight and keep us safe even as we depart in a later hour. We ask all this in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Review of the minutes for May 13th, 2021. Do we have to review the minutes? No. Okay. I don't think we have to, do we? Do we have any old business? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to approve for the view of the minutes from May 13th, 2021?
I move that we approve the minutes.
A second.
The minutes have been approved for May 13th, 2021. I'm sorry, we have to do a vote.
Could all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Do we have any old business?
Mr. Chairman, I have a little comment to make on some old business that we discussed. Sterling Fibers, we had the commissioners meeting after our zoning meeting. Sterling Fibers had a wetland science speaker here, a doctor of, I can't think of his name at present, but anyway, he was explaining to us what part of Sterling Fibers is contaminated. From what we had some issues with some rezoning on some property there, and it's the core of where Air Products, Cyanamid is located. There's 2,100 acres, but the core of that site is what's contaminated, and then I believe it's northwest corner of the property is contaminated. There's some wetlands down there that they found contamination. Not the whole 2,100 acres is contaminated. I spoke with an attorney the following day that had a case out there years ago, and he confirmed exactly what wetland science said. Their studies, and it was a long, drawn-out lawsuit. This attorney explained to me that wetland science was accurate with their information. So I'm basically just kind of letting the board know what I found out, and for what it's worth, if any more cases come up in that area, that we have to deal with what we're up against and exactly where the contamination is.
All right, thank you. Do we have any new business?
All right. Good evening, board. First case of the evening, 2021 SX002. James Rowe is requesting a special exception to divide a parent parcel resulting in 3 parcels which do not possess the required road frontage requirements. The subject site is located at 9036 Quail Roost Drive in Navarre. The subject site is in an R1M mixed residential subdivision zoning district. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up aerial of the subject site. The existing land use is vacant, surrounded by single-family residential and institution there to the north. The future land use is single-family residential. This is looking east up Quail Roost Drive. The site is to our left. This is looking south. The site is behind us. This is looking west down Quail Roost Drive. The site is to the right. And this is looking into the site from Quail Roost Drive. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant showing the proposed division. And that's all I have.
Do we have anybody that wants to speak on behalf of this? Come forward, your name and address, please. Speak, turn the mic on, please. It says speaker.
My name is Randall Williams. I live at 9066, 9064 Quail Roost Drive. We've been living there since October of 1970, and with the houses that's already on that road, we're having problems with drainage, water runoff, and I've noticed just the last couple of years, our water table has risen on our property and our neighbor's property. There's nowhere for it to drain. We have a management wetland or a forestry wetland right behind us, so we can't do no backfilling or anything like that. And Quail Roost is a really bad road. They rezoned it, I think in '03 or '05, about no more concrete mailboxes because somebody had backed into ours or something, and 3 weeks later, they just rezoned it for some type of a certain road. And that's a cut-through road. If you've ever been down there on a weekend, Friday, whatever, holidays, it's a major cut-through road. We get a lot of traffic. And we need sidewalks, other stuff like that before any more houses. I mean, it's just too much right now. So I say no to it. That's it.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for it or against it? Please come forward. Please come to the podium. And just your name and address to the mic.
I'm John Wilson with Hard Rock Homes, 5447 Abilene Court, Gulf Breeze, 32563. So I've got a house under construction here at 9036, and I've got approximately 600 or 700 foot of depth going back, and there's a ditch back here between my property and the church. So the proposed home here, and I want to build it for my daughter and her husband, and they got a 1-year-old baby, and they want to have it where it's facing ours. So we're going to have it off the road about 200 feet, and we want to have it where the driveways kind of meet. And, you know, the 1-year-old maybe can just ride his little tricycle over to our house, you know, and she's all excited for it because, you know, she says while he's growing up, he won't be right on a road. It's going to be like 200 feet or so off the road. And, you know, that's the only reason we're, you know, applying for it. So I don't, if there's any other, I mean, the water, I don't know how one more house is going to like really affect the runoff or anything. You know, 3.5 acres or so. I just don't see it. And if there's any other like opposition, I'd like to rebut that too, please.
Okay, it was backwards. This is your property,
Yes.
not the other gentleman's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does the board have any questions?
Yes, I have one. If I'm understanding, your easement in width is how many feet? The easement width, the road
Yeah,
frontage.
the road frontage, how?
We've got 70 feet right now.
You got 70?
And I've got a house that's permitted with the 70 feet. And then all I'm asking is to have one more house out there to, you know, put my daughter a house there on the remainder of the 3.5 or 3.2, whatever it's more than 3 acres. You know, just.
So you have 70 feet of road frontage now for
Right.
access? Okay, and you want to subdivide this into 3 different lots?
Oh, well, this was proposed like, this is our original plan, and this was like, this proposed area is the other lot, but there's basically just one more structure that I'm really interested in adding, you know, is this right here. This other proposed
Yes,
was
sir,
like,
but did I see in here that you're requesting those 3 lots?
well, I don't know, I have one lot right here that we're using this for the road frontage.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then the only lot that there's proposed is this one for my daughter, and then this one in case, you know, she has 2 sisters, and I really, if I'm giving one some property, I just, you know, might as well ask for some for her sisters, but if that's, you know, if that's out of the question, then this blue proposed, if that's out of the question, then that's fine too.
So basically, we have 3 1-acre lots, when this is pretty much almost close to we'd have about 3 1-acre lots if we agreed to this. Am I correct?
Well, no, there'll be just a little small lot here, and then this small lot, they're about a third of an acre, I think. And then the whole rest of this is just like vacant, or blank or whatever. But that was the only other proposed area, is this little area right here.
Okay. So I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get a grip on this. The whole area you have there, the total amount of property you own is?
3.2, 3.5, something like that. I don't know.
All right. And, okay.
And this one's already permitted. I just need this one more house here for my daughter.
It's 3.29 acres.
I'm sorry?
It's 3.29 acres.
Okay.
Yeah, the whole parcel's 3.29 acres.
And how much land for your daughter that she'll have?
It'll be basically like a 70 or 80 by 140, how much ever that is. A third of an acre, a little more than a quarter. Yes, sir.
And the reason I'm asking that is, the kind of saturation area you might have for home.
Mm-hmm.
You got to use the microphone, Mr. Norris. And also, there is a conceptual site plan in your packet that was provided by the applicant.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't quite understand what I was looking at, but, which is, I got you. And that's the thing is, I was just concerned about how much land each house would have for saturation areas. So you didn't have a lot of runoff, to neighbors. And in my opinion, I think that's definitely adequate for a home. How many square feet is this house that you're maybe?
I don't think we have it drawn yet, but, somewhere around 1,800 live-in or something like that, and then a garage.
I got you.
Like 2,000, 2,200 under roof. It's not huge. That's basically how big this one is, but I think she's okay with just mirroring this existing house right here, or under construction house. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have anybody else that wants to speak on before this, or any opposition?
Can I speak again?
Sure.
Yes, I can understand what he's saying if we equally divide these 3 homes into 3 different acres. That back ditch back there has higher embankments for any kind of drainage. It all runs along the edge of that ditch into a wetlands. They're even having problems across the street to feed the wetlands behind those houses because they built up all them houses where there's no ditches cutting through. So the only way that water's going to go is the low-lying people that's already existed there in the low-lying areas, and they're getting flooded out. Because all these new homes are building up. It's not 1 house per acre like we have. We have 2.5 acres, only 2 residents on there. 1 in the back, 1 in the front, and that's it. So we got plenty of runoff. And like I said, it feeds into them wetland swamps. They're going to build them up. It ain't 1 house per acre. It's 1 house to 2.5, and then you got a house to a third and another third. That's not right. There's still not enough runoff. You're building up these houses where that water's got to go somewhere, and it ain't making it into them ditches. It's coming onto our property and everybody else's around there, and it's flooding us out. It ain't. I could see it if it was 3 single dwellings for 3 acres, but it's not. They're packing in them houses behind them because those are deep lots. Just like off of Sunset, they can only put the houses up front because it's all wetlands behind them. And no.
Sorry, real quick. I mean, we're not wanting to build a whole bunch of houses. We're just wanting to put 1 extra house on that. And like I say, that ditch back there, I mean, that's what that's what the ditches are made for. And, I mean, but I doubt the water, I think the water's going to absorb into the ground before it ever goes to the ditch. But, I mean, there's just two houses per 3 acres is, I think, you know, I think the ground can handle that.
Do you have anybody else that would like to speak? All right. Do we have a motion?
So just for clarification, does he want 3 lots for 3 houses? Because if you get approved for 3 lots, then you can end up with 3 houses. So that's what I was wanting to know. And is there not room before the ditch to make 3 1-acre parcels? Because you got 3.29 acres, why can't you have 3 1-acre parcels and then have a house on each parcel eventually? Because if you get approval for 3 lots, then you can eventually have 3 houses, no matter what. So
I agree, Mr. Yates, and I would like to ask the gentleman a question about, there is a ditch between you and this other gentleman here? No. There is not?
No, sir, it's on the back side of us. The basements are higher, but where no water runs off.
If you want to speak, please come to the podium. That's because these meetings are recorded.
The embankments on the north side of the property, of our property, the embankments from the property up to the embankments is about 3 foot high. It's a deep ditch that always consists of water all year round because of different creeks and runoffs throughout the area around there. Like I said, from Sunset south, that's all wetlands. They have no houses behind them houses, but we're up on the road. Same way with Quail Roost. On the south side of Quail Roost, if you want to pull up the map, you see them houses right there on the road and nothing behind them because there's wetlands behind there for the water to run off to. All that water where he's coming from runs through us, runs east into the wetlands down to a dead-end road to the wetlands, and that's how it drains. I've watched it. I've watched it since 1970 there, and it's gotten worse and worse flooding. We can't pick our houses up. All they can do is build their houses up higher where that water runs off. It's not running that back ditch. It's not running the back ditch until probably 800 yards east of our properties because it's wetlands. It can't go up over an embankment. It can't go over a 3-foot embankment. Only lower spot there is to the west at the gas line there, and that's a runoff there. But it feeds all the other properties around there that runs off. And the more you build up, more is going to fill up with water. Nowhere's to run. Nowhere's.
So at present, you're taking the water from this property now?
Yes, sir. Right now, even from that property there's nowhere. We get 6 to 8 inches.
Sir, I understand, but you're taking the water off his property now, is running onto your property, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir. It runs through.
I got you.
Yes, sir. Ours and the one in between.
Yes, sir. I understand. The one in between.
Yes, sir. There's a 2.5 acre lot between his and ours. And all in back there, it runs along the ditch out into the wetlands, and it feeds
I see.
around.
So your property does abut his property?
Not joint to it, no, sir. I'm within
Gotcha.
500
There's 2.5 acres between you two?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
It's 275 feet wide, I guess, from it.
Yes, sir.
Go 300 feet wide, or whatever the widths are.
I understand. 200 to 300 wide, you said?
Yeah, well, they're deep. They're 2.5 acre depths. So I don't know what the width of from the east to west. You know, it's, I don't know. There's that width and another width and then his property. And they got houses in the front. They left the lot open so they can fill all that in behind them houses with houses. And that's not, we don't have the runoff. We don't have the, you know, do something with that property instead of put houses in there, put in a playground for the area. Or something for somebody. With kids, he can't even ride his kids down that street without getting hurt. We had the same incident down on Pony to where a man and a woman and a dog got ran over. 3 weeks later, they had sidewalks. It's a bad road for any kind of new development.
Well, sir, I have to, you know, this gentleman, and I wish, I'm trying to figure out which way I would vote for this, but you know, he owns the property. He has a right to do with his property as much as possible. I'm for property rights, and there is some property between you and him that catches that runoff, and I don't know what's going to happen with that in time. But, you know, I tend to have to agree with the gentleman. I think he has a right to, he's just asking for 3 homes, max. And he's really, right now, he's saying 2, but 3 lots, like Mr. H said, is 3 houses in the future. And I don't see where 3 homes is going to make a difference on 3.5 acres versus 1 house on 3.5 acres.
As long as there's a house on each one of those acres.
Yes,
and
sir.
not two houses congested on a half an acre where it builds up that area right there. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
not a problem if there's a house on each one of those acres, but there's not.
I understand.
It's not
And
divided that way.
like, you know, your home is on 1 acre, I believe you said?
No, sir, 2.5.
You're on 2.5 acres?
Yes, sir.
Well, an acre
But we
of
can't
property
fill
for a
in.
home is a pretty good sized piece of property by today's standards.
Yes, sir, they are, but we can't do no fill-in. We can't have no dirt hauled in. The Turners right down the road tried that, and he was fined and arrested for filling in wetlands right there on the same road, west on Quail Roost.
Yes, sir, and that's something we don't get into because, you know, we don't write
That's
the permits.
wetlands, you can't,
We don't write the permits, you know, I mean, I'll zone a piece of wetlands for commercial property, but that doesn't mean the man's going to be able to do anything with it. That just means I'm going to get more taxes off a piece of wetlands. But I'm saying that a house on an acre for 3 houses on 3.5 acres is not asking too much.
if you knew the area it was, if you've been over there and you've seen the congestion and everything else, and when it storms and when it rains and the water runs, you'd see it. It may not sound in reality or theory, whatever, a house on 3 acres or 3 houses on 3 acres. Well, sure, you can put 6 houses on 3 acres. You can put 12 houses on 3 acres if you
He's
divide it
asking
up
for
right.
3 houses
But
on
it
3.5.
ain't equipped for the runoff. It ain't for the area.
Yes, sir.
So,
Thank you.
Board members, if y'all have a minute, just for information regarding the stormwater in the South Santa Rosa County, just recall that we adopted a new Santa Rosa County Land Development Code, and it specifically states that lots not within a platted subdivision, that drainage plan shall include the finished floor elevation. They have to provide a stormwater storage pond to treat and attenuate the stormwater in accordance with the stormwater regulations. They have to provide spot elevations around the perimeter of the lot along the property lines, provide flow arrows, and show all infrastructure on the site necessary to convey the runoff. And all lots will require certified as-built prior to the issuance of the certificate of occupancy.
So if I understand you correctly, he would have to retain his water?
Yes, sir, that is
Just
correct.
as it was a platted subdivision?
Just like in a platted subdivision, he'll need to show where that water is going based on his engineering records, and then at that point in time, the engineer of record is responsible for identifying that.
So upon approving or pulling a permit for this property, he will have to have engineering done on this property?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
One last thing, not to drag this out, but the only thing I'm confused about is the plot plan. It's because it shows existing structure, and then a structure for daughter, and then there's still 3.5 acres behind all this stuff, and the whole thing's only 3.2 acres. And then there's another proposed area, so if you could maybe pull it up and have him explain it, that's the only question I have.
So the request is for the additional, for basically 3 lots. Under the special exception, he can get 3 lots without road frontage. Each lot in this area is zoned R1M, so it requires a minimum of a 1/4 acre lot and has to have 70 foot of county maintained road frontage. So his existing home that he is currently there has the 70 foot of road frontage. He has that lot. That's how he gets to that main lot. He is wanting, his request is to create 3 additional lots without road frontage. Certainly, this board can have that discussion, you know, in agreement with the gentleman here. If he only wants 1 or if he wants 2, based on zoning, he can go to 3, and then based on the special exception, he can go to 3 additional units without the road frontage.
I understand all that, but what I don't understand is the plot plan. So if you end up with 3 lots, why is there 5 here? Or, you see what I'm saying? If you pull up the picture, maybe I'm not reading it right, but I was wanting maybe somebody to explain that.
If you look at the
Which of the
plan.
3 lots?
Yeah, okay. So the one that says proposed single-family structure, if you're looking at the right, that has the 70-foot of road frontage. It makes that L down. If you see the one 9036 Quail Roost Road, that does not have road frontage. It will be using the access off the other. The reason it's 3 is because just north of that, you see that long strip that's proposed? That's the second one without road frontage. And then the top one, if he divides that off, that creates a third with no road frontage.
Okay, so I understand now. The 3.5 just shows, that's the amount.
That's the
whole
total.
amount. Got it.
Yes.
Okay, got it, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve. And the reason, he has to retain all his runoff. So from now on, after he develops this piece of property, even the runoff that he has now will be retained if there was nothing on it. So I don't see any reason that this gentleman can't develop this piece of property having to retain 100% of his runoff. So I would make a motion to approve this
I'll second it.
without objection. Did he object?
All right, looks like we have no objection. Motion has been approved.
The next case, 2021 V064, Brian and Leanne Kimbrell are requesting 2 variances. The first is the request to reduce the driveway spacing on a minor arterial from 440 feet to 160 feet to accommodate a driveway for a proposed residence. The second request is to reduce the shoreline protection setback from 50 feet to 40 feet 4 inches to accommodate a pool in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. The subject site is located at 6921 East Bay Boulevard in Navarre. The site is in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is single-family residential, surrounded mostly by single-family residential, and then there's some recreation open space to the south and also borders along Tom King Bayou. The site is in a stormwater problem area. This is looking west down East Bay Boulevard. The site is to the left. This is looking north. The site is behind. This is looking east up East Bay Boulevard. The site is to the right. And this is looking into the site from East Bay Boulevard. This is a view into the western portion of the site where the driveway is proposed. This is another view into the western portion. And this is a view into the rear of the property where the pool is proposed. This is a survey submitted by the applicant showing the proposed drive in relation to the current drive. And this is a site plan showing the proposed pool. And that's all I have.
Do we have anybody that wishes to speak on behalf of this? Please come forward, state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Brian Kimbrell at 6921 East Bay Boulevard. We purchased this lot about a year ago, and our intentions were to hopefully add a couple of bungalows on our property. It's 1.3 acres. How we're proposing is to add 2 smaller residences with access to the road and splitting the lot to a .26 and a .28 or 29, and then having a driveway that has accesses to the other 2 little properties. We're going to continue to own the properties. I don't know what else I'm sure you have questions for me.
Does the board have any questions?
Along the driveways in the East Bay area, I know that we were talking about the distances between each of the driveways, which I think was ample. But there's a lot on that road that are 15, 20 feet apart. I'm asking for 160 feet, so I don't think it would be too much to ask for, but we wanted to make sure we're in with you guys first.
So you're looking to share a driveway with the other two residences, right? There's one driveway going in for the other two residents?
Correct. I don't want to split and do, there's not enough room for two driveways. I think it'd be ample, and it's going to be right between them anyway.
And you were saying bungalows, they're going to be still part of your property, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'll still own the properties. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. Our largest concern was the safety and making sure that the distances were correct.
What's the current speed limit on that road?
45 miles an hour.
Sean, this sharing driveways of this nature, I mean, that's been permissible in the past?
Yes, sir, for access management, that's what we certainly encourage, the driveway spacing and shared use drives.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question for staff as well. Sean, he was stating that there was more cases like this on this road. Is this something that's been passed in the past?
So this board, along with the Board of County Commissioners, adopted access management standards when, especially on some of your major high-speed corridors as such. And the reason for that is for safety aspects. The more driveways you have accessing the road, the more crash points you have. And certainly from transportation planning aspect, that's something we're trying to avoid. So East Bay Boulevard, it does have a high speed. That's why we're working on the multi-use trail across the street from this property and the bridge, multi-use bridge that will be the last completion part of a 10-mile trail. But it is a high-speed corridor, and so certainly that, we take a look at that. And we'll certainly also need to take a look at any proposed lots that are created for the reference cottages to make sure that we have enough buildable uplands for those created lots.
And that's where I was going, is I'm inclined to go with staff on this, because if we get too much, we're going to possibly bring either one of two things, one of them being bringing the speed limit down, probably, if we set a precedent on this. I mean, I know we're not going to set the speed limits. I'm
Yes,
saying
sir.
if we're allowing more driveways to go in, is that the danger of that happening?
Well, so we actually had what's called a corridor management plan that occurred late last year on this for East Bay Boulevard. It went from 98 all the way to 87. And some of the discussion points was the speed on those segments of corridor. But certainly lowering the speed limit was not one of them. This is an access management corridor. We move traffic from left to right. And that's the whole point of this road based on that design of that facility.
So basically, if we said yes on the driveway part, are we setting a bad precedent, is what I'm saying? Is that precedent going to be constantly hitting us here?
I think certainly, you're going to have a couple other cases tonight, and access management is a case-by-case scenario, certainly for that.
Do you have any other questions? No. Do we have any opposition or support that would like to speak? No opposition or support. Can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I don't see a problem with the pool setback either. I see no issues here whatsoever.
Do you guys want to discuss that real quick?
Sir?
The pool?
Yes, sir.
So one thing that's sort of a benefit for
Well,
that.
actually, I don't Does the board have any issues or questions, I guess, about the pool setback? You know, I mean, I don't have a, there's no issue, really no explanation needed there. I think we're good on that one.
The
That's
pool?
There's two requests, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I believe you did a motion approved for request 1 and 2.
When you made the motion to approve, was it for the first request or both requests?
Both requests, I suppose. Yeah, I make a motion to approve both requests.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any further discussion amongst the board members? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thanks,
Good to
guys.
go.
We'll see you again some other time.
Next item on the agenda, 2021 V066, Stephen and Angel Kehoe are requesting a variance to the timing of construction to allow an accessory structure prior to the construction of the main residence in an RR1 rural residential single family zoning district. The subject site is located at 4595 Pine Tree Drive in Pace. The site is in an RR1 rural residential single family zoning district. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is single-family residential with single-family residential surrounding all sides. This site is in a stormwater problem area. This is looking west down Fawnwood Drive. The site is to our left. This is looking east up Fawnwood Drive. The site is to our right. This is a view into the site from Fawnwood Drive. This is looking north up Pine Tree. The site is to the left. This is looking south down Pine Tree. The site is to the right. And this is another view into the site from Pine Tree where the accessory structure is proposed. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant. And that's all I have.
Do we have anybody with wish to speak on behalf of this? Nobody?
Is the applicant here tonight regarding this case? Can you please come forth?
I'm Stephen Kehoe, 3580 Fawnwood Drive, Pace, Florida. So basically, we are renting our current house. We sold our house in Gulf Breeze and bought this lot and moved to Pace. So just basically timing of construction, I would like to build a shop 40 by 30 before I actually build the house. I've got a lot of tools in storage that I'd like to move them there and actually help in the process of building the house. So we're going to put the house out for bid after the first of the year. So it's just, I'd like to be able to build a pole barn, enclosed pole barn first. So that's it.
Does the board have any questions?
So, Mr. Kehoe, the timing of construction would be sometime next year?
Of the house,
Yes.
correct? Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, yes.
But you'd go ahead and start on the pole barn immediately?
Immediately, yeah, I would have to, still have to get it permitted and all that, but I just
Okay.
wanted to.
And there wouldn't be like a living space in the pole barn?
No, not at all. No,
Okay.
just storage.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you. I'd like to, if we don't have.
Hold on, let me see if there's any
Yeah.
opposition. Do you have any opposition? Like to speak? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
My name is Elton Killam. I live at 6256 East Bay Boulevard. My only question was, I saw a large oak tree depicted on the screen up there, and I was just curious what the applicant intended to do with that.
Keep it absolutely.
And this pole structure, will it eventually become an Airbnb?
No, not at all.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak? No? All right, make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve without objection.
If you do not have any objection, motion has been approved.
Next item on the agenda, 2021 V067, Ms. Penny Hupsch. I'm sorry for messing it up. The variance is a request to reduce the side setbacks from 3 feet to 6 inches to accommodate a pole barn in a PUD, planned unit development zoning district. The subject site is located at 1691 Sunny Oak Street in Gulf Breeze. The site is in a PUD, planned unit development zoning district. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is vacant with vacant surrounding all sides. This is looking north up Sunny Oak Street. The site is to our left. This is looking east. The site is behind us. This is looking south down Sunny Oak Street. The site is to the right. And this is a view into the site from Sunny Oak Street. The pole barn will essentially cover the RV. This is a site plan depicting where the pole barn will be located in relation to the property line. And that's all I have.
Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of this?
I'm Penny Hipsch, and I need a pole barn to cover
Can you please state your address?
Say what?
State your address for the record.
1691 Sunny Oak Street, Gulf Breeze, 32563. And I want a pole barn to cover my trailer. Trailers tend to deteriorate if they're kept. Excuse me. Want me to shut up?
No, I don't want you to go in all that
Okay,
detail.
all right.
Sorry.
This is the male-female thing.
We just want the pole barn, the lot's only 25 feet
Can
wide.
you please state your name and address?
Jerome Simmons, 1691 Sunny Oak Street.
Thank you.
So the lot's only 25 feet wide. All we're asking is to put the poles to, 6 inches in. It's only RVs around us. That's all we are is RVs.
And it's not an enclosed pole
All
barn,
right.
it's open.
Yeah, it's just gonna allow, only 19 feet wide of that lot that we could use if those poles are 3 feet in on each side.
Must have been my voice.
So that's what we're asking is for the variance, just 6 inches off with just the post. There's not gonna be a structure there other than the posts.
The only concern I have is that 6 inches off the water coming off you is going on your neighbors there, so.
It's all, there's no concrete, it's all rock.
But if
And we would not put concrete in there just because then our water would flow to the next one. Whoops.
So you're saying the roof's gonna cause the water to come off?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about that. I mean, I'd love to, that's the only concern I have is that the watershed onto the neighbor's
it's
property.
not-
If they did put concrete on your neighbors, then would they
It's not
get?
gonna change the pole barn. All I'm gonna do is move the post in 3 sides. It's still gonna be a 24-foot wide pole barn.
Yes, sir. I'm concerned about the water on the roof. It's what I was concerned about, getting on, just running off and over onto your neighbors. It actually,
We have a cut down, so it won't do that. We have a 3-foot sides on the back and the sides. The only place that's open is the front. So it will be a 3-foot drop down on the pole barn, which should eliminate some of that.
is the park have any regulations governing this type of,
HOA, and HOA has approved our request.
so HOA has approved your request?
Yes.
Well, I see no reason that I need to be involved in that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition that'd like to speak? Okay. I don't see any opposition. Do we have a motion? I'm sorry?
I make a motion to approve without objection.
We have no objection. Motion has been approved. Thank you.
Next case, 2021 V068, is a variance request, again to the timing of construction, to allow an accessory structure prior to the construction of the main residence in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. The subject site is located at 1629 Scott Court in Gulf Breeze. The subject site is in an R1 single-family residential zoning district. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is single-family residential with single-family residential surrounding all sides. This is looking south down Scott Court. The site is to our right. This is looking east. The site is behind us. This is looking north up Scott Court. Site is to the left. And this is looking into the site from Scott Court. The accessory structure will be in the location of the pole barn, as it were, now. This is a survey submitted by the applicant showing the location. And that's all I have.
Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on behalf of this?
Kerry Rogers. I live at 3546 Vernon Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee, at the time.
My name is Jennifer Rogers. I'm at 1066 Bayshore Road in Gulf Breeze.
Husband and wife. We've been separated going on 2 years now.
We're not separated.
Not legally separated.
Not living in the same place, in the same state. We're not separated.
The residential building was intended to be an 8 to 10 month build. This was just before the coronavirus and everything took toll on everyone's community. Shortly after that, the budget on our house build went up $93,000 because of the cost. So we had to make a decision to put things on hold until the prices came down just a bit. So this is our way to get us back together under the same roof. So we basically want to build the garage ahead of time before we start the house once the prices come down so that we can house our belongings, storage, and automobiles so that I can put my house in Memphis up for sale and move back in with my wife. I've spoke with our builder. He seems to think by the first of the year we should have prices at a reasonable rate to where we can get back with the bank and sign the contract, get started on the house. As it stands, we're going to end up building a $348,000 house that's only worth $270,000 because of the price hikes. Just didn't make sense. That's pretty much it. It's just simply for storage, automobiles, so that I can sell the house in Memphis and we can get back together.
What he's not saying, he's a car guy. He has a lot of vehicles that are going to be in that shop. I'm staying with my mother, which is where he will be staying once we can get all of our stuff out of Tennessee and where we want to be. We are building the house. That lot used to be my grandparents', so that stays with us forever. And my aunt is across the street, and my cousin is next door to her. We're not going anywhere. We're building the house. This is where we're going to retire. This is where we're going to spend the rest of our lives. I know we have a neighbor that's concerned that we're going to put some kind of living quarters in there of some sort, which is not even reasonable. We have 2 really big dogs that are not going to fit in there. So, you know, we just want a place to put all of our things until, you know, our builder's saying maybe after the first of the year, this will look better for us. The building costs would be more reasonable.
Any questions from the board? Is there any opposition who would like to speak or in support of? Looks like no opposition. I'll make a motion for approval without objection. I don't see any objection. Motion has been approved.
Thank you for your time.
Next item on the agenda, case 2021 V070. Tim and Julie Spivey are requesting a variance to reduce the driveway spacing on a minor arterial from 660 feet to 171 feet to accommodate a driveway for a proposed single-family residence. The subject site is located on the 8200 block of Munson Highway. The site is in an Ag RR, Rural Residential Agriculture Zoning District. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is silviculture, with silviculture surrounding all sides and some single-family residential and vacant to the north. This is looking south down Munson Highway. The site is to our right. This is looking north up Munson Highway. The site is to the left. And this is looking into the site from Munson Highway. This is a survey submitted by the applicant showing the distance there from the entrance or the drive there to the north. And that's all I have.
Do we have somebody who wishes to speak on behalf of this?
How y'all doing? I'm Tim Spivey. My address is 2772 Oakey Court, Navarre, Florida, 32566. Hadn't got a whole lot to say. You know, our frontage on our property is 363 or 7 feet. I really can't remember, but anyway, it's right around that. There's just a couple of driveways, as you saw in the pictures, that are there, you know, north of me, around me. And, you know, 660 feet to me in that area is just a little bit far. I know that it's an access management highway. The speed limit's 55 if anybody's asking. That's all I got right now, unless you got any other questions.
Does the board have any questions for him?
This button. 171, the 171 feet, who's the closest driveway? Who's the driveway they're basing that one off of?
The closest driveway would be to the north up Munson Highway, and it is a driveway that's put there for a guy it's a long driveway for a guy that got a motorcycle track put in. And then the very next driveway north of it is, hang on one second and I'll tell you exactly how far it is, because I've measured every single driveway up and down the road. It's 210 feet to the north. And then there's a good long piece to the, well, hang on, there's 2 more driveways, 395 feet is the next one. And then approximately the same on the very next one to the north. And then it's good ways down the road, you go across where Bob's Canoes is, going to south, and then some of the next driveways you come to, you know, are 259, 45, 22, 160, you know, all the driveways are under 660 feet on the whole highway for around 5 miles. So I was just trying to get my driveway on my property instead of having to drive across somebody else's property to get to my property.
Any more questions? Is there any opposition who'd like to speak? I don't see any opposition. Can we get a motion?
I make a motion to approve without objection.
I don't see any objection. Motion's been approved.
Thank you very much and appreciate y'all's service. You want me to turn this off or leave it on?
We're going to actually, usually around this time, we do take a small break. We'll come back in 10 minutes. I don't. Yeah, We're appointed by the county commissioners. No, no pay. Yeah, once a month we get yelled at. Yeah, absolutely. It gets rough sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, we're appointed by our county commissioners. Yeah. All right, we're calling the meeting back to order. Who's naming that? I think we're missing a staff member. Uh-huh.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we'll run with it, see what we can do here. All right, so the first item is a conditional use 2021 CU 017. It's a conditional use request to allow a private airstrip within an agricultural, rural residential agricultural zoning district. The site is located at 10584 Highway 89 in Milton. The subject site is the agricultural rural residential zoning district. This is an aerial of the subject site and the surrounding properties. This is moving into a close-up of the subject site. The existing land use is agricultural homestead with silvicultural mostly surrounding, with small portions of vacant and single-family residential to the southwest corner. Future land use is Ag RR. The site is within a military airport influence area. This is looking south down Highway 89. The site is to the left. This is looking west across Highway 89. Site is behind us. Looking north up Highway 89. The site is to the right. Looking to the site from Highway 89. And this is the site plan submitted by the applicant. That's all the staff's presentation, sir.
Do you have anybody who wish to speak on behalf of this?
I'm Damon Grizzle. I want to put in a private airstrip to keep my airplane on my farm. Do you have any questions for me?
Does the board have any questions?
Just, I have a couple questions for you, sir. On the property itself, when you're going to use it, I represent Whiting Field, so we have an airfield that's about 2.5 miles to your west. It's a helicopter training area field for us. I'll just say, don't have an objection to it.
Okay.
The type of aircraft that you're going to be flying, is it for crop dusting for the Griswold?
No, sir.
Piece?
No, sir. It's
just private use?
Private use airplane.
Awesome. And you're aware that we have an airfield about 2.5 miles to the west?
Yes, sir.
And then they also got the RC model park, just a little bit
that's
to the
right.
11 o'clock from your
Right.
property.
Right.
And then all of the T6s that come from the north side of to come back to Whiting Field, come over the top of your property at 1,700 feet. So it's a piece of airspace that can be a little bit difficult, possibly.
Right.
I just want to be, it wouldn't be if I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't tell you that. It's a busy piece of airspace. If you do launch, obviously directional wind, if you come to the west, we're typically not going to be coming off that way with our helicopters to kind of take off to the southwest of that piece of property.
Right, I noticed.
And then when we come in, we usually come in from the south and swing east, west, north, south into the property itself. The T6s would be your main challenge coming back if you got up at altitude.
Gotcha.
Are you instrument rated, or are you just going to be flying visually?
Just VFR right now.
VFR, okay, sir. Awesome. That's all I had really for the board's knowledge. We did look at it, did brief the command on it, and didn't see any major issues with it. And it sounds like it's just for private use, not commercial use. And
That's correct.
got it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for him? All right. Is there any opposition would like to speak?
I'd like to make a motion to approve without objection.
I don't see any objection. Motion has been approved.
And also, Mr. Griswold, this is a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, so we will still have to see you in 2 weeks. Okay. Next case, 2021 CU018. This is a conditional use request to allow multiple family dwelling structures within an HCD Highway Commercial Development zoning district. Subject site is located on the 8900 block of Navarre Parkway. The subject site is in an HCD Highway Commercial Development zoning district. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding areas. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is mixed residential commercial with mixed residential commercial to the immediate north and office to the immediate east and west. The future land use is commercial. The site does have the potential for wetlands on site, and there have been some zoning board cases in the surrounding area. This is looking east up Navarre Parkway. The site is to the left. This is looking south. The site is behind us. This is looking west down Navarre Parkway. The site is to the right. And this is a view into the site from Navarre Parkway to the HCD portion. This is looking to Navarre Parkway from within the site. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant showing the entire site with parcels north of the one requesting the conditional use. But we do have to note the only portion that is HCD is that most southern triangular piece. And that's what they're requesting the conditional use for. And that's all I have.
Do you have anybody wish to speak on behalf of this?
Good evening. My name's Ed Stanford, 3997 Commons Drive, Suite F, Destin, Florida, with Core Engineering Consulting. As Mr. Drain pointed out, this property is really contiguous with 3 or 4 other properties that Mr. Waters owns, and it has actually 3 different land use and zonings on it: HCD, R2, and R3. The R2 and R3, you're allowed to do apartments, you're allowed to do multifamily on. The HCD is adjacent to it. We're not allowed to without a conditional use. That's why we're here tonight. There's an existing trailer park that consists of 18 trailers. Our intention is to redevelop that area, probably clean it up just a little bit. And I want to make sure, I looked at some of the comments that the county received from interested parties, and our goal is not to connect Highway 98 to Timber Lane. There were some concerns about that and traffic flowing onto Timber Lane. Also some concerns about stormwater. Obviously, anything that has to do with infrastructure, stormwater, traffic, those type of things are going to be handled through any sort of development order process or subdivision process if we, go that route. That's basically all I have. I'll entertain any questions. We'll even look at, we're trying to look at our options on this property. This is the first in a long line of processes that we'll have to go through. But whether it's multifamily or single family, I noticed somebody wrote a letter asking that we look at single family. Single family is a conditional use as well in that use. So kind of an odd shaped piece. It's about 1.7 acres of 16 acres total. So, you know, we're just attempting to be able to use it smartly. It's the only part of the property that is HCD.
Does the board have any questions? Is there any opposition that wish to speak? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, please.
First, thank y'all for being here. I know zoning adjustment boards and planning commissions are two of the least thankful jobs out there sometimes. My name is Frank Williamson. I live at 2059 Fountain View Drive, which is the adjacent subdivision to the west. I obtained a real estate broker's license in 1974 and worked in that business as a small-town broker until I retired 6 years ago. I was also a certified general appraiser. In addition, I taught real estate pre-license classes at local junior college and at Auburn University. My experience also included serving as an expert witness in court cases and as a probate commissioner in condemnation cases. I bought my house here in this subdivision as a retirement home because of the close proximity to the beach, because of the attractiveness of the neighborhood, the convenience of shopping and medical services. Our subdivision has nice compatible houses on small, low-maintenance lots. It takes me 15 minutes to cut my grass. We've enjoyed this location tremendously, and the neighbors have been great. The proposed development appears to be on a small flag lot with very limited road frontage. It appears to be below grade for the road. It appears that if the business that's on there continues, it'll have a joint use access with whatever's developed. With the number of apartments, it appears there'll be considerable traffic congestion on Highway 98. We've got a turning lane coming into our subdivision that's used only by my subdivision. If traffic's allowed to exit onto 98 directly from this flag lot, it's going to back up traffic down that little turning lane, and there are going to be a lot of rear-end accidents out there. Potential flooding from this lot could cause damage to my neighborhood, and I question whether the proposed project could meet any kind of reasonable impervious surface ratio requirements. I think maybe a smaller development of single-family residential would be a more appropriate use and best use of this property. And that's all I've got.
Sir, real quick, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So you're saying that it would be better to have single-family residence on this property versus a commercial development?
Well, look at 130 apartments with 2 occupants each. How many parking spaces are you going to have, and how many cars are you going to have coming out of there? And weigh that against maybe a few houses. I think single-family residential would be more appropriate for this area. Right around this property, you've got, on my side, of course, you've got a 51-lot subdivision with 49 houses already built in the subdivision. One's fixing to be under construction, one's still vacant and for sale. To the immediate northwest, you've got a home medical service building, which is an office building. To the immediate east, you've got Betty Fountain and her son's law office, and you've got a doctor's office. White Wilson has an office there. I just don't think a number of apartments is appropriate for this parcel.
Again, we're willing to consider single family, but I think you pointed out a very good position for this property, which is a transitional use between the single family residential to the north and the commercial to the south along Highway 98. You know, I guess I'm not going to say smart development, but what we strive for is a transitional scale between higher intensity commercial uses that are buffered by lower intensity commercial, possibly multifamily, and then single family residential as we go further away from the centroid of of the town, so to speak. We're already approved through zoning and land use to do multifamily on 2/3 of this property. So we're just trying to clean up this corner and probably make a smarter development at the end of the day. Multifamily also includes townhomes. So these are all options within the conditional use for HCD, and that's what we intend to explore, whether it's single family or multifamily. The only caution I give you is that we don't understand yet what our ability is to do any of them. So that's why we're asking for the multifamily, but we would also ask for single family, and we could go back and finish up our site plan surveys, wetland studies, et cetera, any permitting that we had to do. All of the technical requirements for subdivision or commercial development or multifamily development are still going to be vetted by planning and zoning and the staff and engineering. DOT is still going to have a say as to whether we get a connection or how we get that connection. And then, of course, the Northwest Florida Water Management District or the DEP is going to have a say as to whether, we get a stormwater permit. So I know we're not going to solve all the issues today, but as we move through the processes within the county, we will be scrutinized by all these jurisdictions.
Sean, the minimum lot size is a 1/4 acre. Is that correct? That we can,
Under which one, sir?
like, under the 1/4 acre would be the smallest lot size that we can have for apartment complex or a duplex, a triplex.
No, sir. Basically, I think for townhomes and as such, you can go to a 20-foot wide townhome as approved. So under multifamily, it could be apartments, townhomes, condominiums, or a combination thereof.
I'm sorry. So the minimum lot size per unit or per building?
Yeah, under the multifamily, certainly you could do multifamily apartments. I don't think that there is if it's a platted subdivision, in that sense, as far as like a townhome, you can go to a 20-foot wide townhome, basically, 20-foot wide lot.
And that would be based if there's sewer available and...
Yes, sir. So certainly, under this aspect, anything in multifamily will have to go to sewer. Stormwater will certainly be into consideration. Access to 98 will be up to FDOT's purview. I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, this piece of property is not really suitable for HCD because it, has no road visibility too much. So that's why I was asking these questions, is to see his proposal, his conceptual site plan here might be a little heavy on how many units you can get in there. So.
I don't disagree with you on.
I'm not the civil engineer, so I can't.
Well, this is conceptual, and we know that there's a lot of, ground to plow before we get approved. Exactly. And we understand that there's a lot of scrutiny, wetlands, stormwater runoff, and of course DOT access and traffic. And I agree with you. In this particular case, because of the way the property is located, it's sort of hidden. It's surrounded by, but hidden by also the commercial frontage. And, of course, we would consider doing something with an R on it. R3 would probably be something that could be considered. But this is probably the quickest route to make the entire property a little more consistent.
Your intent is single story, or do you know?
Probably 2-story. Right now, we're considering either townhomes, 4-plexes, or 8-plexes. Nothing 3-story walk-up that you've seen out there on 98 that's been developed in the last, 2, 3, 4 years. More of a lower impact modular type. And when I say modular, I'm saying they're all the same, not trailer style. So, and the reason why we're here is because only this 1.7 acres or a portion of it is HCD. Everything else is R2 or R3.
Yeah, the Fountain subdivision is a pretty nice subdivision, we would, we want to keep, you'd want to keep something.
The other thing to look at is there's a wetland line that lies on the west side of the property. And so it's going to be difficult for us to probably get into that anyways, honestly. And so that's pretty much going to serve as a buffer. And I just talked with Sean about placing our stormwater there, and there might be overlap of maybe 1 or 2 buildings in this HCD area. But, our goal would probably be to, and water generally flows from the north to the south, so our stormwater would generally be in the south, right, where this HCD is. Now, if we were smart about this, quote unquote, in a typical commercial project, we would not put stormwater close to Highway 98. But because of the configuration of the wetlands, we are not anticipating, developing up close to the right of way. And we'll seek all kinds of opportunities to mitigate whatever we do. In fact, if we do 2-story, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but if we do 2-story, we're still required to have the 2 times the height buffers on each side, or did that recently get changed?
That did recently change, and
Okay.
that's something we're looking at, but I believe that only applied if you own the surrounding properties and developing that as well.
Okay.
I have a little bit of experience in this type of development, and just from first glance, it looks like your conceptual is pretty tight. The retention doesn't seem to be as, I think you're going to be surprised at what kind of retention, but I'm not a civil engineer, and I don't need to go there, but.
Well, it's conceptual
I wish
as
y'all
well.
would look in the world as many units as you can get, but, you got to utilize your property.
A lot of times I don't like even sending these out because we don't have all the information
Right.
yet. We're here because if we don't get this, then we're going to go do something else. We're still going to develop something back there in the trailer park area. We're just not going to be able to use the HCD portion for any of our infrastructure or stormwater. So
Right.
I don't know what we're going to do with it, but this allows us the flexibility to roll it into a master development. I agree with you. The plan is tight. Part of that is because I want to show you a worst case scenario. If I showed 4 units on there, 4 buildings, you guys would have probably said, hey, this doesn't look like the impact that you're going to provide us. So I'm being very transparent with everything because I'm not interested in going down the line, getting to the BCC, and them saying, no, sir, not today, not ever. And we've just spent, $100,000 on studies and designs, et cetera. So this just allows us to put the pieces together. If we don't do this, then we're going to kick the HCD off, and we'll do something with it. I just don't know what it's going to be right now.
Does anybody else wish to speak? Can we get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for approval based on, I don't think this property is really adequate for HCD, given its shape and location. I'll make a motion to approve without objection.
We have no objection. Motion is approved.
I talked with Sean about the application just to include residential as a potential. So even though we're here for multifamily, residential is also an allowable use within, conditional use within HCD. So if it, at the behest of the board, if it is okay to add the residential, it'll give us something else to look at. We don't know what we're doing with this property yet. I gave you the worst case scenario. So if you would like to, you can include the residential just to give us options. The residential is a conditional use within HCD. and the multifamily is a conditional use within the HCD.
I think we've already made a motion for approval without objection for the multifamily. So I think if there's any consideration for a conditional use for single-family residential, at that point in time, we would have to come back for another conditional use application.
Okay, that's fine.
He'd have to come back to drop it to residential, single-family dwellings. Well, it's easier to go to single-family dwellings than it is to multifamily dwellings, you know, from my experience. Yeah. So the motion stands.
Motion stands.
Next case, 2021 CU019, is a conditional use to allow single-family residential development in an HCD Highway Commercial Development Zoning District. The subject site is located on the 8900 block of Navarre Parkway. The site is in an HCD Highway Commercial Development Zoning District. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is vacant with single-family residential and some vacant to the east and west, and Santa Rosa Sound to the south. The future land use is commercial. There have been quite a few zoning board cases in the surrounding area. This is looking west down Navarre Parkway. The site is to our left. This is looking north across Navarre Parkway. The site is behind us. You'll notice this was the site for the previous conditional use. This is looking east up Navarre Parkway. The site is to the right. And this is a view into the site from Navarre Parkway. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant showing the proposed development within the HCD. And that's all I have.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Yaley. I'm with McKim & Creed, 1206 North Palafox, Pensacola, Florida, 32501. Here tonight, the property owners are who is listed on the application. I'm here representing Southern Ventures, who's the potential developer of this property. They're looking to put a high-end kind of front porch walking private gated community in the R1 area behind the HCD. A handful of the lots, I think there's 3 of the lots that encroach into the back of the HCD portion that's along the highway frontage there. So our request is to allow single-family residential use in the HCD. Be happy to answer any specific questions, but just want to point out a couple things. As far as density goes, the existing R1 area, so without our request, there's about 12.5 acres of R1 zoned property back there, which at 4 units per acre would allow up to 50 units to be developed. The proposed subdivision only includes 35 single-family lots. Similarly, I think the new LDC, just chatted with Sean before the meeting, allows you to go down to 50 foot of width in a platted subdivision, and the lots that are being proposed here are not less than 70 feet in width. And lastly, just as far as the lot size goes, I don't believe the new LDC even has minimum lot size requirements for R1. The lots here are not going to be less than 1/4 of an acre. So it's within an area that's bordered by residential on both sides. In fact, the residential to the east is actually within some HCD zoning, so we feel like it's compatible with the area and compatible with the surrounding zonings, and be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions. Is there anybody in opposition who wants to speak? Looks like you got somebody behind you.
How you doing? I'm Glenn Bousquet. I live at 1916 Costa Verde Court, Navarre 32566, which is in the subdivision of Costa Verde, which is right next to this vacant lot. I'm not sure, which side I'm on, opposed or not, because we're trying to find out with, we have a big drainage of water that, as he said, that wetlands that goes right down the side. I bought this property, which I'm on the actual water end, and since I've lived there for 1 year, Sally welcomed me after I bought it, but the water from the water side that goes up started maybe 8 feet wide. Now it's about 25 feet wide. So it's getting bigger, which the guy that lives next to me, it's going to eventually start taking his yard away. But we are trying to get some riprap or some kind of plan to, if they build this and they start sending that water from up front and from there to that wetlands, which is going to come down that thing. It's already expanding just through the storms and weather. We just like to, be aware that that has to be addressed. And I know he said he's going to get some things. But I will say it's a safety issue for traffic. I heard a little bit about high-speed corridor, and if you look at that road right there, it's very difficult to get out from Costa Verde to even get onto the road because of traffic. And then, of course, you have to drive all the way down past Shrimp Basket to come back around because of the way the road's set up. There'll be a lot more traffic there that's already very tight. The school buses have a hard time coming down the road at the Costa Verde. They actually pull in my driveway just to do a three-point turn to get out. It's nice that they pick the kids up by their house, but from Escambia County, they have to walk to a place for safety. But the school bus is getting in and out, so that'll be the same thing for this subdivision, to where the sanitation trucks, they've already hit my mailbox once since I've lived here already. So the road's not, we have to look at that. But the biggest thing is the water runoff, because that particular thing that looks like a small stream is getting bigger and bigger, and it's going to cause an issue. And, I don't have any of the plans. I haven't seen anything, so I don't know if I'm opposed to anything except just sort of a warning of safety for traffic coming on and off of 98, because it's rough for me right there getting to Costa Verde. And for multifamilies, that many with kids at school and that kind of stuff, it's going to be a safety thing we consider. But so, like I said, I just really want to meet the person so I can get name and address so I can get my homeowners association to talk with them. So, thank you.
So just to briefly try to address a couple of the comments. As far as stormwater goes, there is an existing DOT culvert that crosses under the highway, enters the north part of this property, and then shares what's our eastern property line and Costa Verde's western property line. DOT has a recorded easement that extends down, I'm going to say, about 25% of the depth of our property. As part of the layout that we're prepared to submit for platting, we're actually extending a drainage easement, a common area for the full length of the property so that that ditch can be more suitably maintained to convey stormwater. It's actually, the southern end of the ditch turns into a pretty nice wetland feature that in phase 1 of the subdivision, we've excluded lots from any kind of impacts to that ditch so that we can work through proper mitigation. I mean, the developer's even talking about living shorelines to try to, exactly what's being discussed there, prevent this thing from migrating and just continuing to erode away the property. So my client shares those concerns with Costa Verde, certainly would be interested in engaging with them. Their stormwater pond is right on the border of their property, so we've got kind of shared interest in that light there. As far as the traffic goes, I guess I would offer that our request is actually reducing the more intense commercial usage of the property along Highway 90. So again, most of the property is already zoned R1. We can do most of the subdivision without even being here. Our request is to expand single-family into what could otherwise be a more intense commercial use. So everyone knows about the traffic issues along the highway there. I would contend that single-family would be a less intense use than a potential commercial use that could come there.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve without objection.
Second.
Looks like there's no objection. Motion has approved.
Thank you very much.
Also, just to remind the people speaking, rebuttals will be limited to 4 minutes. It's just because of time restraints. And if it's but if it's redundant, we'll ask you, not to speak if the person in front of you is basically saying the same thing, just because of time restraints. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, staff would also ask, there's a lot of sidebar conversation. This is an auditorium, so when you're talking and collaborating and things like that out here, it really filters up here so we can hear it. So if we can just kind of, if there's any sidebar conversation or anything like that, feel free to take it outside and fellowship and gather and stuff. But in here, certainly, thank you.
The next item on the agenda, case 2021 R043, Sonny Susan Bolton, represented by Becky Cato, are requesting to rezone 9.3 acres from R1, single-family residential, and HCD, highway commercial development, to R2, medium-density residential, and also amend the future land use from single-family residential and commercial to medium-density residential. The subject site is located on the 1600 block of Beechwood Drive in Gulf Breeze. The subject site is in an R1 single-family residential and partial HCD highway commercial development zoning district. The proposed zoning would be all R2, medium-density residential. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up aerial of the subject site. The existing land use is single-family and residential and industrial, with a mixture of vacant and single-family residential to the north, east, and west, and then industrial, vacant, and some office to the south. The future land use is single-family residential and that portion of commercial. The proposed future land use is medium-density residential. This is looking south down Beechwood Drive. The site is to the left. This is looking west into the intersection at Kelly Lane and Beechwood. The site is behind us. This is looking north up Beechwood. The site is to our right. And this is a view into the site from Beechwood. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant. And that's all I have.
Good evening. I'm Becky Cato from Pace, and I am here tonight to represent the property owner in this request to rezone 9.3 acres in the Midway area. The reason that we're asking to rezone this property is because we want to develop townhome units on the property instead of the single family or commercial that can be done there now. We're asking for R2 because that's the lowest density residential category that will allow a townhome development. I want to be very clear that we're not asking for R2 because we want 10 units an acre. We do not. Although that's the maximum allowed, that's not what we plan to do on that property. In fact, the site plan that's in your package, the preliminary site plan, the density of that is only 3 units an acre for this property, which is less than the current zoning of R1 allows. R1 allows 4 units an acre. Typically, of course, when you plat a residential subdivision, you get less than actually 4. But with the recent change to allow 50-foot lots, you get better numbers there with the R1. So what we're proposing really is not higher density than can be allowed there. It's just a different type of unit. With these townhomes, townhome differs from apartments, if you will, based on ownership. The owner owns the unit and the dirt underneath it, and typically the dirt in front and in back. Something I want to mention about townhome development in Santa Rosa County, and this is unique, and I think it's important for the zoning board to understand this, because we don't do a whole lot of townhomes in Santa Rosa County. With a single-family residential subdivision, the area is platted, the individual lots are sold then to the builder, and the builder builds it. And in doing that, they have to grade the lots and all that kind of stuff. With a townhome, it's a little different. It's initially approved as a site plan, not as a plat. So it goes through the commercial review process. And in doing that, it meets a higher standard when it comes to things like tree protection. It's easier to manage stormwater when you do it that way because it's all done together. Typically, the slabs are poured for the townhome units, and then after that, when they're really clear where the units are actually going to be on the property, then they do the surveying and develop a plat from that, and they can sell the dirt under each one of those units. Do you see what I mean? So the initial development of the property is all done at one time, meaning that you really can control that stormwater better. And so you have fewer stormwater problems than you might see in a single-family residential subdivision where everybody's having to grade those lots individually, and individual property owners have a little more leeway of that over time, it's just harder to manage that. I think particularly in the south end of the county, we've seen a big demand for tree protection. Doing this as a townhome development requires a higher level of tree protection than if it was single-family lots. Because they're townhomes and not R1 development, it will require a buffer between this development and what's around it, and I think that's going to be very important for development in that area. You see on the in the staff analysis, I want to point out that when it comes to the traffic, what we're requesting, the development potential for that does not increase the potential traffic. Granted, you're going to build anywhere, you're going to have some cars. But this particular zoning change doesn't increase the traffic potential. And staff has also noted that there are no wetlands on the site, so it's suitable for development. The only thing that they noted is that it doesn't seem to fit in the surrounding area, and I think that might just be because we don't see much townhome development in Santa Rosa County yet. I just came back from 2 weeks in the suburbs of Richmond, Virginia, where there's more of a mix of housing types, and it was really obvious to me how those mesh well. And the townhomes often provide a good transition from single-family homes to, as in this case, then townhomes, and then the more intense commercial development then that's south of that. So I would say that just by nature, particularly with the density being exactly the same as what you would get with the single family, I would contend that this is definitely a compatible development. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board has or any questions that the public might have.
Does the board have any questions? Anybody like to speak in opposition?
Elton Killam, 6256 East Bay Boulevard. I ask, why other than more profit does this zoning change need to be made? Does Midway need the added density? 47 years ago, when I first moved to Midway, there was a sign at the beginning of the Laniapi Beach Road that had all the names of everybody that lived on the road, which is now called East Bay Boulevard. There were few cars then, but now I'm afraid to drive on it due to the concrete trucks, the dump trucks, the contractors, the fast trucks, and just crazy drivers. All seem to be in a mad rush to build out Midway before mid-impact fees or the tree ordinances go into effect. I've lived through many storms and hurricanes: Frederick, Aaron, Opal, Dennis, Ivan, Sally, and I've watched the white sandy beach in front of my house disappear, only to be replaced by expensive rocks and seawalls. The taxes and insurance have gone up. East Bay Boulevard has turned into one big Airbnb. Now, you're the front line to deny these additional structures that I'm hearing about all night, and you have no control over it. The state has control over it, but you could stop it at this point. New residents put in wells. They think the water's free. When they have them on sprinkler systems that run in the driving rain, and there's now saltwater intrusion in Gulf Breeze and wells. And I've read that the average individual can use as much as 500,000 gallons of water per year. This figure does not account for car washes, commercial developments, and farms. Now, we're living in a county that's currently in a state of chaos. Midway has grown 21.4%, according to the News Journal. Mr. Parker, our commissioner, has even said that he wonders if the growth will keep up with the infrastructure, because it's not keeping up right now. The chaos has been caused by the departure of 23 county employees, the county attorney, the administrator, his assistant, a grant person, other personnel, and even this entire board was replaced. So this is the kind of environment that these out-of-state profiteers like to take advantage of, where you have no impact fees, no regulations, and your LDC is subject to be changed by the zoning board and the county commission at any time. When they develop this property, the creatures on the ground, in the air, in the water are being killed. They're run out of their natural habitat. Bears and snakes are driven out of the woods.
Sir, excuse me, do you have anything relevant to this case?
Well, this is the...
It don't seem like it's relevant to the case we're discussing.
The people of Hickory Shores deserve to live in an R1 environment. That's the deal they made. They have a homeowners association. This development will change the density and will change the rules of a homeowners association. And regardless of what she says, there's going to be more water usage, more traffic, and more strain on the infrastructure down there. And we just don't need it. And you don't need to keep approving projects that add to the problem. So I'd go on about the oyster beds that are out there in the water that are going to be impacted when this thing doesn't work out, and the fact that this is a very unique geographical location. If you're familiar with it, it's where there's a dip in the road, there's a basin at Beaver Creek. Everything runs down there and runs into East Bay. I think that's relevant, Mr. Norris. Thank you.
Subdivision, every development is relevant. So why you pick on this one?
I'm picking on this one because of the geographic location
It's
And
no
because
different than
in
any other jail. It's
Midway-
no different than where you live.
Well,
You know, and I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, but you go off on oyster beds and all this other stuff, and we're here to discuss this case, and we don't have a lot of time for getting into research on the whole geographical area. We're concerned about this development. So
Well,
let's
it's
stay
a
on
cancer
point. I
growing
noticed you
on
come
the
up here
whole
several
area.
times during this meeting, during these meetings and processes that we go through, and I've noticed you have a lot of environmental studies and things you've read about and all that, but it doesn't seem that you know exactly, in my opinion, just my opinion only, that you don't understand exactly what you're talking about. So we're discussing this particular development.
Well,
and I'd like for you to stay on point. If you have
Okay,
anything to
I
say
have
pertaining to your approach
47
of it, we
years.
got it, we understand it. So if you would, let somebody else speak, please. I would appreciate it. Thank
Okay.
you.
And just let you know, please keep your rebuttals to 4 minutes. That's what we're keeping track of. Thank you.
Y'all excuse my hat. I just had eye surgery. I'm trying to keep those lights out of my eyes. My name is Jim Patrick. I live at 4645 Hickory Shores Boulevard. I live adjacent to the property that Sonny Bolton owns. As a matter of fact, could I ask you to pull up the one of the one that shows the vacant signs? I want to. It shows vacant. Okay, no, go back one more. There we go. Okay, the one that says vacant and has the line drawn through it. The triangle below that, my wife and I own that. Yep, the one below it. Below it, that one. That big one, big triangle. That one, we own that one too. All right, the one above it, that's white. The white one with the, we own that one. Okay, go to your left. Go to your left. One more. We own that one. Okay, go down, down. Now go to your left. We own that one. Okay, we own 5 parcels there, so we own quite a bit of land right around Miss Bolton's property. Now, what I'd like to point out is the fact that the topography of that land is just, it falls off sharply at about a 60-degree angle from the high point of Miss Bolton's property, which is approximately 26 to 28 feet above sea level. And right through the center of that vacant parcel there is called, yes, right through there. We have that turned into, we bought that and turned that into a conservation zone. There's a beautiful creek called Beaver Pond Creek that goes through that, and the elevation and the runoff, if it's not caught by the retention pond, is going to sharply run into that Beaver Pond Creek. And I believe that there are approximately 6 individuals at this meeting whose property is in jeopardy with increased surface water or urban runoff. Now, another problem we've got is on the opposite side of Highway 98. When they widen 98, they're going to put another retention pond in over there for the widening. It's going to be, and it's going to drain into that Beaver Pond Creek and that Beaver Pond. Now, the problem we've got with that is all of that is going to go into East Bay, and East Bay is Class 2 waters, and just down from that is an aquaculture operation. There is a successful oyster farmer there, and I feel bad about that. I guess maybe we're not supposed to talk about that for some reason. But anyway, let me see if I've covered. I sent y'all a letter, and I think all of you have received my letter. Have y'all had a chance to read my letter that I sent to you? Have you people, it's in your package. Have you had a chance to read it? Please. One person has.
I've read it.
Okay, good. I'm glad y'all read it. Thank you. Okay, I don't have much more really, except I do have something I want to add, and it's the sewer is quite a distance from these townhouses. It's going to be between 1/4 and 1/2 mile, and it's going to be a low pressure pumping station that they use all over. It's very common. But just a few days ago, lightning struck the one in Holly, struck the transformer in Holly and shut that one down. And they just barely saved a sewage spill. And it would have been a bad sewage spill, and it would have gone right into that creek and right into East Bay. And this is going to be the same thing here. It's low pressure sewage that's going to have to be pumped into the...
Yes, sir. You're over your 4 minutes, too. I'll let you go another 30 seconds.
I didn't know we were keeping up with our time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, then I guess I'm done. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank the board for the opportunity of assembly and the opportunity to speak. My name is Patrick Borthwick. I live at 1736 Beaver Pond Road in property adjacent to the proposal to the east. I worked for 38 years as a biologist for Fish and Wildlife, EPA, and I did some contract work for NASA after I retired in 2005. Both my wife, Julie Rose Borthwick, and I are retired, and we plan to age in place in our forever home on Beaver Pond Road, which is on Beaver Pond Creek. Our home is the greatest financial investment we've made in our lifetime. Our paradise is among many naval live oaks, magnolia, and hickory. A unique wetland with high uplands gives this property special status. The old scrub habitat that we live on is in lake succession. The beaver pond is in succession, as was the upper beaver pond closer to 98, which is now a meadow because of siltation due to nutrients. And it's happened since I've occupied this land. We feed the songbirds. We often see and hear eagles, osprey, hawks, owls. We see and hear wildlife such as alligator, raccoon, possum, skunk, fox, squirrel, otter, beaver, wildcat, deer, and bear. Wildlife on this land has suffered a loss of habitat, loss of foraging ground, and an increase in wildlife encounters is being noted all over Santa Rosa County, especially on the south end. Encounters with humans, encounters with pets. Some of this wildlife can carry parasites and diseases like rabies and distemper. Natural wildlife is now competing for food resources with feral cat population. Varmints like coyotes and armadillos that are non-indigenous. Wild animals are no longer sustained by their natural foods. They're becoming more and more dependent on humans, and they're making raids on pet food, bird feeders, compost piles. Raccoons are damaging ornamental plants just to get the earthworms in the soil. Bears are literally tearing down fences. The sharks and dolphins, they're not on this land, but they're taking your fish that you catch out when you're snapper fishing. The dolphins have turned into bums. They're free-loading off fishermen now. The shark encounters on the frontal beaches has increased because of the reduced fish population. That's why we're seeing people get hit by sharks. They're just trying to get something to eat. They're not trying to eat people.
They're without food. The bears are literally tearing down fences, damaging gardens, destroying beehives, and the seagrasses and oyster reefs are gone just in the time I've been there in the East Bay. And that's a direct result of rampant development in Santa Rosa County, especially along the Fairpoint Peninsula. We've got several Native American sites in the Beaver Pond, Hickory Shores area that have been documented by archaeologists and natural archaeologists with the university, and there's published information on these campsites or Native American locations immediate to the property that we're talking about. So, in summary, I don't want to sacrifice our single-family home values due to impacts that come from changing R1 to R2 in order to grow developers' pocketbook. We don't want the increased density of residences and the loss of space between the townhouses.
Yes, sir. You've reached
Due
your
to,
time. You've reached your time limit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oops. Good evening. My name is Bill Davey. I live at 5168 Point Shores Lane in Gulf Breeze. Okay, and I'm not going to talk about the environmental impact of this property. It's going to be developed, we all know that. But how do we want it to be developed? That's the question we're asking right here. Do we want it to continue being single-family residential, which you folks and the commissioners decided in your long-term planning, that's what it should be. And that's the nature of the area. Or are we going to make it something else? And when you make it something else without really seeing a plan that's written in stone, you really don't have any idea what you're doing. Because once that land gets changed to different zoning, without a plan dedicated to it, it can become anything. And when the attorney here talked about, well, you know what, we're only 3 lots per acre and we could go 4. Well, that may or may not be true. In order to access that property, you have to put in roads and everything else, and they probably couldn't have quarter-acre lots, that many quarter-acre lots, okay? So what they're trying to do is they're trying to get in there, and they're going to pull the wool over your eyes. They're going to put up all this stuff. I would like to see a plan that maintains the nature of the area, single-family residences, okay? Stick to your quarter acre things, because I guarantee these pieces of property are not on quarter acres. They're taking that whole piece of land and they're dividing it up into little itty-bitty parcels, and they say have that green zone around them, but they're including that in that division. These are tiny lots, folks, and that's not the nature of the area. Please keep it single-family residential. That's what it was always supposed to be. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you guys for hanging out here and listening to all of us tonight.
Can you please state your name?
Yes, I'm Dr. Michael Paget. I am at 4340 Hickory Shores Boulevard. I am the Hickory Shores Homeowners Association president. I submitted a letter to you guys. I'll try to keep my discussion here brief this evening. I think this is pretty much an open and shut case. I pretty much disagree with everything that Ms. Kiddo says. She's tried to lay out a convincing case and made some nice statements about what this thing's going to be. And at the end of the day, the problem is this is an R1 neighborhood, and we don't oppose her building R1 homes. That's fine. That's what it already is. And there's really no reason to go change it. The whole entire place is R1. One of the things I would like to do, first and foremost, of course, we submitted some petition signatures, and I hope that got included into the actual, meeting itself regarding, how many people are opposed to this. And I might add, those signatures are garnered over a holiday weekend when about 1 out of 2 people weren't even home. And we could easily double those signatures without any kind of problem. But I would just like to start out first and foremost by just asking everyone in the crowd that currently opposes this to please just stand up for a minute. So I don't think we'll have enough time for every last one of us to talk. I don't think that's going to work. First and foremost, everybody be seated, please. I really feel like, the most important thing to me, because everybody else has already talked about a lot of ecological stuff and everything else. This is really straightforward. This is, they want to change it from R1 to R2. It doesn't need to be R2. They can go build R1 homes. We don't oppose that. That's fine. The most important piece of information I think I can present is actually a previous case, and I did include that. I hope that everybody looked at that in the submissions that were put in there. There's been a previous attempt at another property that's in this area, in this same subdivision, that they tried to make it from R1 to R2. And this very board, as well as the Board of County Commissioners, both voted against it. And the statement was that that subdivision, which was almost identical to what they're wanting to do here, R1 to R2, was not in the best interest and in the character of the neighborhood. So this has already been tried. It's already been voted down. It's already been said that this is not in the best interest of the neighborhood. And I really feel like this needs to be something that you need to stick with, and it doesn't need to be some sort of a new arbitrary decision that's going to change or overrule this. There's already a precedent that's been set. I think it's really straightforward. But certainly you have a wealth of, almost assuredly letters, and we've got our petition signatures and everything else that's against this, subdivision. And that's really what I've got to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, can I respond to a couple of the things that were mentioned?
Absolutely. Just keep it to 4 minutes, please.
Importantly, a number of things that we heard are things that are going to occur regardless of what's developed there. Some of the trees need to come out, some of the wildlife will be displaced. That will happen. I commend this gentleman very much for choosing to put land that he owns into conservation area. I wish we all could do that. The best I've been able to do is dedicate the back quarter of my property, and I don't have nearly what he has. He's correct that on his property it does slope steeply down to Beaver Pond Creek. We don't own that property though, where my client's property doesn't slope as steeply. The slope across that wider parcel is much less than the area surrounding it when you zoom out on the topography map and look at the overall area. And like I said, in developing, the way we have to develop townhomes in Santa Rosa County, where you have to do the site plan first and it's all put in one fell swoop, it's much easier to manage that stormwater so you don't get the problems that you get with individual single-family lots. Again, let me just mention again, you get more tree protection with townhomes, which I know the South End wants. The density that we want to do on this property really is the same as what's around it. So in that regard, it does not increase the impacts of people. In fact, townhomes generate fewer vehicles per unit than a single-family residential home would. I know your job would be much easier if you didn't have to look at the criteria to make a decision. If you could just take a vote at each meeting, it would make it easier. But of course, you understand that's not legal. You really are bound to look at the criteria for these. So that said, your job is much harder than any of us would want to do. So, and if you have any questions for me before you.
I do, Ms. Falconberry, or Ms. Cato. A development of this nature, every drop of water has to be retained on this property.
They cannot increase what flows off of the property. So any increase that's caused by the development, of course, when you develop it, you put an impervious surface. And so that does increase water that doesn't soak into the ground. That increase cannot flow off of the property. They have to direct that into the stormwater pond. So there can't be an increase in water that goes. And I'm glad you asked about that, because I think the comments made about the importance of the water quality going into the sound or into the Bay Area is very important. And the holding pond is required to be engineered both for quality and quantity of water. It's not just to hold the volume of water so that it doesn't cause flooding. Importantly, it's required to completely capture that first flush of water so that the impurities are filtered out of it before it gets into the natural water system.
Yeah, I did understand that one of the gentlemen spoke about the settlements and things that would leach off the property. And I wanted to make sure that the public did understand that retention ponds do their job, and especially nowadays where we've had in the past projects that got approved and retention wasn't done correctly. But the county has got pretty astute to watching what's happening nowadays with retention and retaining water, and we've solved a lot of our problems. I kind of apologize to the gentleman that I got a little upset with, but I understand these things and I understand what's going on here, and I would not be for this if I knew the drainage was going into that beaver pond and flowing out into our bays. Definitely I'd be 100% proposed. Now the question is, residential or putting a townhouse development in the middle of, these people's homes that have single-family dwellings. I'm a little concerned about that, and I believe the people have a concern with this, and that's the dilemma I have at present. Does these single-family homes around this development, actually need to happen? Is this a good location for such a development? It seems to me that single-family homes in this area is what should be required. That's just my personal opinion.
My name's Rick Vogler. I live at 4607 Hickory Shores Boulevard. We are going to be right back off the corner of that property where the retention pond is. And first of all, y'all are lucky because about 75% of what I wanted to say has been said very well by these people. The single family homes, that's what that neighborhood is. Most of us are almost half-acre lots, quarter-acre lots. We don't want a bunch of townhomes put right on top of it. But my main concern, the retention pond. That's over 1 acre, according to that plot. 1 acre. Right behind me, my neighbor's house, where we already have water flowing downhill right on us. I mean, it comes, naturally it comes down. Now you're going to have a retention pond sitting right there. Pretty sure they're going to build it up to hold the water. Am I correct? Is that how it works? They should be. But it's sloping down toward us. It's coming down right behind our house, right here. That retention pond is going to be up on one of the higher parts of that whole street. It sits up at the high level. The condo houses, whatever, go there. A retention pond put right there is going to have, the backside of it's going to have to be built up. Let me tell you, the water's already flowing practically into the houses. You start building a retention pond, that's the first thing. I'm not an engineer, so I can't argue to that. All I know is, from looking at it from my perspective, I don't want a 1 acre pond put right in my backyard. Second, I'd like to know how 28 units on 9 acres, that's 28 families, 28 owners, how are they going to pay to keep that retention pond going 5 years from now when it goes down? Who's going to finance that? When that thing craps out, then all the sludge and everything else is going to go downhill behind it, right through the neighborhood that's been there for years. So, Answer that question. Can the lawyer tell us that you're going to be here 10 years from now, making sure that retention pond doesn't screw everybody else up behind it? You got that in the plan? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let me clarify that I'm not a lawyer. I'm a planner, and I know that's, anyway, I'm not an attorney. I'm also not an engineer, but we do have an engineer working on this project who will be responsible for designing the holding pond. I don't know that the details of how that northern side of it will work. I don't know if they'll have to build up or not. I don't know if they've gotten that far. Importantly, though, this gentleman was correct. Most of the property the water does flow that direction already, which means that even if they put in a single-family platted subdivision, that's where the holding pond is going to be. And a single-family subdivision is likely to have more impervious surface after putting in the roads, and typically larger footprint for the homes and that kind of thing. So that's going to be there regardless. And I understand the concern, but importantly, as I mentioned before, townhomes are going to be required to have natural buffers then around those property lines, whereas a single-family home would not have to do that. There was one other thing I was going to mention, and it has slipped my mind, so I'll just ask if you have any other questions for me.
Sir, if you could please come up to the podium and also address the board. That way the board can address.
Yes.
I think he's referring to his question about who's going to pay for it in the future. I'm just involved in the zoning part of it, not in the legal documents for who's responsible for taking care of the infrastructure over time, so I cannot definitively answer that question. I will say that it's going to have to be designed to meet the same codes everybody else is going to have to make. It's going to have those same legal maintenance issues worked out. Typically, all of that happens after the property owner determines through the zoning process what they're allowed to do with the property.
I'd like to ask, just for clarification, and well, first off, I'm more in tune with Mr. Norris about, this kind of zoning and so much residential. But however, if they truly limited it, if it was R2, who's the R2 police that once they get at R2 and they decide, oh, we're not going to develop it now, we don't have time for it, or we don't have the funding, and somebody shows up 5 years from now, well, now you take 10 acres times 10 units an acre, now you can have 100 units. Is there an R2 police that keeps that from occurring if it was truly, because one thought process in my background is, now instead of having single-family residential homes, which a builder would build 2,500 square foot minimum homes in there, okay, which would encompass probably 3,500 square foot of covered ground that's now impermeable. So what goes on from there is, like she said, there is a lot less ground available to take up this water, and then, of course, you're supposed to retain the water and all that, but I've been to places where the retention pond's full, and you dig in the ground 6 houses away from there, and the water table is higher there than it was 5 years ago because of the hydraulics of all this water sitting in a retention pond, and these people are downhill from there. They may not have it in their yard, but now they have a superior yard or a higher water table in their yard. And so I guess I know I've asked you, threw a lot of stuff out there, but what keeps somebody from showing up 2 years and we approved this and it was only going to be, 18 units or whatever, and well, once they get it R2, they sell it to Jimmy or Johnny or somebody else, and now all of a sudden there's 100 units going there. Somebody's got deeper pockets and can do what they want to do.
Yes, sir. So to address the questions, this is a rezoning. So based on precedents, we can't place any type of conditions or anything like that as such upon this rezoning. So the worst case scenario is 10 dwelling units per acre. for this piece of property as multifamily if it's approved by you and the Board of County Commissioners. We're not here tonight. We're not looking at the conceptual site plan. We're not taking any of that into consideration. Basically, everything that they do or they develop will have to meet the requirements of the Santa Rosa County Land Development Code as approved by the Board of County Commissioners.
Hold on, all right, we've already heard how, the traffic issues, the water issues, how single family is more fitting for the area. If you have anything else new to say besides that, we'll welcome to hear it, but we've already heard that.
Well, I'm going to say one thing about the traffic end of it that hadn't been brought up, and Mr. Patrick covered most of what I was going to say. But I don't know if you've looked at that.
Can you please give your name and address for the record?
Okay. My name's Fred Campbell, 4530 Hickory Shores, Gulf Breeze, Florida. If you look at that map, if those houses get up in there, where the entrance is on Beechwood, it almost intersects with Kelly. And they're talking about it's not going to affect anything. Well, it will affect anything because they've only got one way in and one way out. And that's it. So that needs to be, I would think, very considered. And like I said, most of what I was going to say has already been covered. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for allowing me this time to speak to each of you on this issue. Obviously, it's very emotional for a lot of us, and myself included. My name is Sean Laws. I live at 1684 Beechwood Drive. If you could, please pull up the vacant map again. That vacant part, actually I do see the line now. I couldn't see from back where I was sitting. That's actually two pieces of vacant. I own the northern one on the west side. Yep. I own the northern one, and my house is just north of that on that piece of property right there. Even if the retention pond does its job, holds the storm water, as we say, or think it will, you still can't stop mosquitoes, snakes, and things of that nature. It's going to back right up to my property, as well as a lot of these folks right here. Ms. Cato, I'm not really sure where you came up with this idea that townhomes have less vehicles. I'm a school bus driver in the south end of the county. Every home I drive past has got at least 1 to 2 cars in the driveway and another one probably in the garage and everywhere else. So it's definitely going to increase traffic. Beechwood Drive, if this thing does go through, it definitely needs to be widened. Like I said, I drive a school bus. Sometimes I stop at the house, use the restroom throughout the day when I'm on my route. Barely enough room for my school bus and another car to pass each other on that road. When I first built my house in 2012, Beechwood, I had to call the county. The road was all broken up. They came and resurfaced the road. That was 9 years ago. The road's already starting to break up just from the traffic that goes through it on a daily basis now. Like I said, I appreciate you guys' time. Ms. Cato, Ms. Bolton, I get it. You guys are trying to make some money. But, however, this area needs to stay R1. And I thank you, Mr. Norris, for pointing that out earlier. Thank you.
Sir, that gentleman's been trying to speak for the last.
Oh.
Well, I was.
4 minutes
This
per
is
person.
getting redundant.
Hello, my name is George Foss. I live at 1735 Beaver Pond Road. I will show you in a second, but 42-year resident, 21 years in my own home that is adjacent to this property. So I pretty much grew up in these woods, very intimately familiar with the topography and how it lays out, which I know is pretty well covered. Yes, sir.
Right is forward, left is back, this middle is the.
All right, so I included some slides. I didn't know that all that was going to be shown. So we can see what y'all have already seen. And you can see the proposed site plan that they have. And I'm not going to try to shine this in that guy's eye. But this road that comes down here and does this cul-de-sac right here, all these little squiggly lines is the topography that they're talking about, and it is not flat with a subtle. I mean, it goes steep, deep into the woods. So even if they have this retention pond here and it's sound, what happens down here at the end of this cul-de-sac? It's going to flow over here, and it's going to go straight down into that pond and those wetlands and those waterways. Also, I'm not super impressed that engineers don't make mistakes. And we've seen Skanska, we've seen some other engineers. I don't know that that's going to be perfect plan. Not only that, they stop perking after a period of time. So they'll fill up with enough sediment, leaves, and plenty of oak trees that we have there that it's not going to function. So this is another view. It's hard to see, but this is an actual aerial view. And you can't really see a whole lot of homes on this road. But we know they're there, but they're covered with trees. And you know, this is the outlet, the East Bay, and this is a whole marshy wetland that we were all talking about protecting. This is the actual pond that you can't see with just maps. Over here is the beehive clusters, and those are important to know about because they actually impacted this water when they were being constructed. And their retention ponds that are engineered have overflowed and have filled up that pond with not only silty, muddy water, but every time it rains, these torrentials, the overflow is in the pond, which is going to contribute with the other contribute, with the other contribute. And I'll show you some flooding conditions that I've already experienced. Here's another view of the pond. And these are the developments of beehives that had come in, and everything went into these waterways. That's my home. I had solar power. I'm not a big green guy, but I do love trees. And this comes down this way. Huge trees, huge pine trees. This is another section of it. Again, we've pretty much seen that. This is the waterways that empty into the bay. Try to get a crystal clear shot of water that's crystal clear. Minnows, all kind of fish, habitat that's already in place. This is actually the bottom area that we're talking in this valley and basin. These are the trees that are there. Huge pine trees. Huge areas of natural Florida that we're not going to see anywhere. These are what I call the three kings. These are trees, pine trees that I don't know are duplicated anywhere in our area. I put my hand up against one. Look how big that is. Huge. All right, so this is another look. This is at the valley on Hickory Shores Boulevard, looking up towards the wetland, illustrating the valley. And this is towards East Bay. This is where it outlets. This is actually adjacent to where my dad lives now. Where we originally grew up was Route 2, Box 151B, which is now Hickory Shores, which was 4641. So that's where I grew up, and then I built really close to my father. And this is all the area that could be impacted here. And this is, again, from his property looking up towards Hickory Shores. And this is the little slice of bay that opens up in there. Is that my time? So I got 30 seconds to talk about fire suppression. Okay, understood. Been a firefighter for over 25 years. I'm a safety health officer with the battalion chief of Pensacola. NFPA 1710 says deployment of fire suppression operations, low risk R1 needs 15 firefighters in 8 minutes. Midway has 12. So even at R1, they don't have enough personnel to adequately suppress an R1 residential fire. Not only that, if it goes to R2, they need 28 firefighters in 10 minutes. They're not even close to that. They're going to have to get fire departments from Gulf Breeze, which is volunteer, Holly Navarre, Navarre Beach, Pensacola Beach. To get 28 firefighters there, it's going to take way over 10 minutes. Not only that, access is a problem, one way in, one way out. People park on the side of the road. You get a big-ass truck, can't fit down there. It's a problem. On top of that, water problem, water supply. All the hydrants on Hickory Shores are welded shut. The big main caps, so they can get 500 gallons per minute. You look at a townhouse, what does a townhome generate? Large fire and a high life hazard. So what are we not going to be able to do? Save lives. So property, lives, conflagration with the woods, huge problem for that area. Love that fire department, volunteered there for 5 years. You just don't have the water supply. Yeah, to pee, to poop, to wash your hands, wash your face, but not to put out a big, large structure fire. And so other than that, Breland engineers advised me. I talked to the Breland engineer. They're not saving any trees. He said they're going to bulldoze them. And the rest of my PowerPoint had that on it, which I spent a lot of time on. You sure you don't want to see it? I can go through real fast.
We'll see you. We'll see you.
I've got a flooding picture. Can I show you? The
Yeah,
flooding?
yeah, we'll give you another minute.
Okay. That's the flooding behind my house. I have a retaining pond, and it never touched the retaining pond. But just this year, it touched the retaining pond all the way. This is the shoreline. This is another local development down the way. You can see how they just completely bulldozed it. They put in a engineered retention pond here, and it flooded over this road. You can see every single house in these developments. There is no there is no trees. I do have a little passion. This is a huge, huge development, thousands of acres. Here's another retention pond, and if you look close enough, there's runoff. Their engineered pond is failing. And again, house after house after house. We have a unique opportunity to put some R1s in there. I'm thinking one person will buy that property and keep it intact if she finds the right buyer. That's what I'm hoping for. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to deny without objection.
I don't see any objection. The motion has been denied.
Oh, and just as a point of clarification, this is a recommendation.
I live at 4648 Hickory Shores
The
Boulevard.
motion's already been denied. The motion's been denied.
I'm sorry.
You're good. The motion's been denied.
Oh.
But everyone.
Anyway, thank you.
We were clapping for you.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Yeah.
never been to none of these. Man. Really needed the support of that last group of people. I wish they would have stayed for us.
Calling the meeting back to order. Where are we at? Phone bill, maybe? No.
All right, next item on the agenda, case 2021 R044. Candace Christie and Mr. Mark DeLuna are requesting to rezone 6.41 acres from RR1, rural residential single family, to Ag RR, rural residential agriculture, and amend the future land use from single family residential to agricultural rural residential. The subject site is located at 7959 South Airport Road in the East Milton community. Subject site is in an RR1, rural residential single family zoning district. The proposed zoning is Ag RR, rural residential agriculture. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is single-family residential and vacant, with single-family residential and vacant surrounding all sides. The future land use is single-family residential. The proposed future land use is agricultural rural residential. There have been some zoning board cases in the area. As you can see, the rezoning there to the top left. This is looking south down South Airport Road. The site is to the left. This is looking west across South Airport Road. The site is behind. This is looking north up South Airport Road. The site is to the right. And this is a view into the site. This is a proposed site layout of the subject site. And that's all I have.
Would anybody like to speak on behalf of this?
Hi, my name is Candace Christie. I live at 7959 South Airport Road. I'm looking to rezone my property from RR1 to the Ag RR, not only because I own horses, which is allowed in RR1. So this is not the main reason that I want my property changed. You see, I grew up down on this road, in fact, 2 houses down when I was younger, and at that point is where I got my first horse, and that's when I determined that I really liked the neighborhood, and that is where most likely I wanted to move in when we were looking to purchase our first home. I purchased this home when I was 25 years old. It was a foreclosed property, completely wooded and completely trashed. I've worked my butt off to get to where I'm at. My horses are my passion, and yes, I do own a horse business that I started last year, but it is not on this property. I run it at local arenas. I do cold water horse trails. I think horses are a great aspect for people, and I'm sure some of y'all up here have had horses in your life and can talk about memories there. I was also raised in McClellan, Munson, Florida. We had gardens, we had goats, we had chickens. We had the good country life, and that is who I am, and that is what I want this property to be. I want to be able to sustain and grow a garden for my family, for my parents that are disabled, for his mom that's disabled. I want to be able to have storage, a pole barn for my tractor. I want to be able to have a pole barn and a shelter for my horses. As far as the complaints go in regards to the smell or the flies, I personally spend about $300 a month on feed-through fly supplement control. Our manure is spread throughout, so therefore there's not that much of a problem, and I do believe we live in Florida. So can anybody tell me that y'all don't have flies or gnats or yellow flies or bees running around somewhere? It's there, it's everywhere. As far as the Caesar Lane road goes, that is not our personal driveway. We have one driveway, which is the middle of our property. We did have an easement right to that, but because we like to respect our neighbors, we don't even use that road. So therefore, the complaint that goes along with my trailer and my trucks are ruining that piece of lot, I have nothing to do with that. In fact, we've even chose to keep a 30-foot wood line after we cleared the property to keep and control and contain the privacy between my neighbors and myself. I also want to ask the question as far as the horses go, and again, going back to is zoned RR1. Right down the road, less than a quarter mile, there's a blueberry farm. There's people that own goats, and there's at least 6 horses on my road. So if we're going to talk about the flies, the manure smell, the gnats, and the other bugs, I would like to mention that I don't feel that it's fair that it's coming strictly from my property. And I'm not very good at public speaking, so I think that's about as far as I have. I do hope that all of you as elected officials are here to help our community and function peacefully and productively. So I'm sure you will allow this country girl the full benefit of country life by rezoning my property to ag. And that's it for me. Thank y'all so much.
Is there any opposition? Would like to speak?
Yes. My name's Rayco Christie. I am that young lady's mother. Let me tell you something. I live 2 houses up on the right from her. We have an above-ground swimming pool. Me and my husband use it every day. We got flies because we live in Florida. We light our little tiki torches. He brings his little thermocell out there, and we enjoy ourselves. We have cookouts all the time. We're outside. We engage. My daughter is so passionate about horses. I can't even explain it to you. Have you ever watched Magic or a Miracle? Watch that little girl in a pasture with her horses, because that's what it's like. She is extremely passionate and dedicated. I don't have grandbabies, I have grand horses. She loves those animals, and she will do anything that she can. And may I also add that all of her horses are rescue, rehabilitated horses. Can I add that? That she has done that out of her own pocket to take care of rescued horses. She doesn't get donations from people. She has an enormous horse family that, yes, they do come over, friends that come and help do things. When one of them's sick, they come over and help. But as far as her business goes, everything she does is at the arena in East Milton and at Coldwater. And as a matter of fact, because I work at Dollar General in East Milton, a lot of people that come from the KOA wanting to find out what neat things there are in our community, I tell them, go on Facebook and look up my daughter. Her business name is Believe the Journey. If you want a wonderful experience, go on one of her trail rides. It's not just gonna, she's just not healing horses. She's healing people. She's helping people in the community. She's using that land to help those animals so that she can help people. So I really hope that each and every one of you hear what I'm telling you when I'm telling you that is that child's compassion of taking care of those horses. It's just an added little bit that she helped people, and that's all I had to say.
I'd like to move to make a motion, approval without objection. I don't see any objection. Motion has been approved. Good luck with it.
Just a reminder, you need to appear before the Board of County Commissioners in 2 weeks. They run their ship differently. Be there at 6 o'clock. Thank you.
You got a nice looking place. I actually had an appointment right there by your place today. And I just happened to see the sign and I looked at it. That's a nice looking place. You got some nice looking horses.
Next item on the agenda, 2021 R045, Flynn Building Specialist, represented by Kaylin Walden, is requesting to rezone 1.93 acres from Ag RR, Rural Residential Agriculture, to R1, Single Family Residential, and change the future land use from Agricultural Rural Residential to Single Family Residential. Subject site is located on the 6,000 block of Enfinger Road. The current zoning is Ag RR, Rural Residential Agriculture. The proposed zoning is R1, Single Family Residential. This is an area of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up area of the subject site. The existing land use is vacant with single-family residential and vacant to the north, south, and west, and agricultural homestead to the east. Future land use is agricultural rural residential. The proposed future land use is single-family residential. The site is located within a stormwater problem area. This is looking south down Enfinger Road. The site is to the left. This is looking west. The site is behind us. This is looking north up Enfinger Road. The site is to the right. And this is a view into the site. This is a aerial showing the potential lot layouts. And that's all I have.
Good evening, Philip Ross, Pensacola, Florida. Any questions?
How many houses are we gonna put in there?
Just two. Just basically splitting the lots.
Rezoning is not saying two. That would be, you're going R1, right? For how many acres? How many?
It's 1.93, so technically under Ag R, you couldn't get two because one of them wouldn't be a full acre.
Right.
But taking it to R1, you can get 7.7 or 7.3 or something, so 7 homes. So,
But again, they either have to plat it as a subdivision, or they have to have the 70-foot of road frontage on a county-maintained right-of-way. So that's another factor in there as well.
okay, so the question is, what is the maximum amount, if it's approved tonight, what's the maximum amount of homes that you could put on that land? Under the new land development code and all that. From what I saw on the paperwork, it's seven homes.
Yeah.
That's if you're just factoring density, but if
Yeah,
you
that's
have
just
road
factoring
frontage, you have to have a certain amount of road frontage as well, which we have enough for.
With
I
the
believe,
current
2
road
lots.
frontage, what is the maximum amount of homes that you could have on the land, I guess is my question.
With just a road frontage now, without going to subdivision, it could be just
2 lots. Yeah, we would have to develop, and that's not really feasible to develop that, or plat that
They have to apply
parcel.
for a subdivision. Is there any more questions?
I would say two. If it was R1 and he did meets and bounds lots, I doubt he's got 210 feet of road frontage to get 3 of them on there.
I agree with that, but my question is, if he goes R1 and it gets approved, then he goes back later and applies for a small-scale subdivision or something of that nature, because he's already zoned R1, then what's the maximum, if he did water retention and fell under all the rules and everything he's supposed to do, then you can go into your 7.
It'd probably be more like 5 or 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was asking.
Because he's going to have to bring a road down the middle.
Well, I'm just trying to, because the reality is, once you rezone, then you sell to somebody else, and somebody else can do what they want as long as they meet all the county rules. So,
Yes,
just like
sir.
to know what the maximum allowable is under that zoning.
That's correct, certainly. I mean, we look at density, but you also have to, again, take into the fact, okay, what's the cost of development for a subdivision? Is it cost feasible to do 5 homes for a subdivision?
I agree with that. I completely agree with that. But you rezone it, and then the owner gets hit by a bus, and then somebody else buys the property and decides to do something else. I just want to know what the maximum allowable was. That's all.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want anybody getting hit by a bus.
No, no worries. I'm good. Any other
Do we have any
questions?
more questions?
Can I make a motion?
Let's see if there's, I think we got some opposition over here.
Good evening, Board. My name's Tiffany Kochi. I live at 6034 Infinger. And to answer your question, according to their application, at 1.93 acres, it would be 7.72 possible homes. There's a little bit of discrepancy. According to their case packet that they submitted, if you look on there, the original owners of that parcel, it's listed at 1.99 acres. So that's 0.01 off from 2 acres, which would give them 8 homes if given this zoning. So initially, what they wanted to do was break it into 2 parcels. That's what he was going to do, or the company was going to do if this was granted. That's already been done. We have an A and a B, 2 separate parcel numbers on the property appraiser website. So I believe that the appropriate, according to what he wants to do, is one of the homes is going to be 0.54 acres, and the other is going to be at 1.40. So, in order to avoid 8 homes in the future, if they meet everything they need to meet, he could zone it, the larger one at AR or AGRR, and the smaller one at RR1, not R1. And that's all I do have other things. All the tree people, I look, the vegetation, there's live oaks. They are going to knock this down eventually regardless, so I hope they protect those. Let me see what else I have written down. That's really it. Just, it's not necessary, but it's my opinion. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you.
If I may, just to clarify, I'm not trying to be difficult, but, I mean, in this marketplace, I'm a realtor, so in this marketplace, any kind of land you can get your hand on becomes like gold. And so, for somebody to rezone and say, well, I'm gonna do this, and then change your mind, that's their prerogative, and they're allowed to do that if it's been approved. However, when you look at the paperwork, I mean, it's right here on the paperwork, 7.72 possible units are available on that parcel once it's rezoned to R1. So if there's a way to satisfy the client or the applicant to do 2 units, then maybe there's another way to do that. That way it doesn't fall into some other, because it's pace, it's very desirable, and there's already congestion, and we don't have the road infrastructure for, it's the same argument over and over and over from everybody, you know?
So the gentleman has 170 foot of road frontage. You have to maintain a minimum of a 70 foot of road frontage on a county maintained right of way without having to go through the subdivision process. So he, as it is right now, as it's divided up, he can get 2 homes on that property.
So as it sits now, he can get the 2 homes he wants to put on there.
With the rezoning. Because what happens is it's
Gotcha.
the density. You can't get a variance
Okay,
for the density.
I'm going to be real clear on where I'm at. When you see, I see R1 going in the middle of Ag RR north of this area, in this area, I'm just scared of precedent. So all of a sudden we got a little cancer going. And I've been real clear that I'm more comfortable when I see 4-lane roads instead of the 2-lane roads. So when I'm talking to the board, I want you guys to realize where my concern is. It's getting stuck in traffic. And that little yellow spot right there, you see the yellow spot to the right of it. I mean, it's going to start, and that's where it starts.
I'm literally looking at the paperwork that was provided to me by the county. It says right here, for the R1 estimation, 1.93 acres at 40 use per acre, 7.72 possible units. And I understand what you're saying, Sean, about infrastructure and all that. But if somebody decides to go through the process to get 7 lots out of it, for whatever they pay for it, it can be done to a certain extent. So, you know, and if you're saying it can't be, then there's got to be a way to zone it to where you can have only two homes, period, and be done with it. So there's a variance to meet that. And I don't know the ins and outs of that, but that's my opinion.
So you could certainly do RR1, which is a minimum of half-acre lot. That may be another option. By doing that, now you're still amending the future land use to single-family residential, but an RR1 half-acre lot would certainly be another option.
I'd like to make a motion to deny it as it stands now and with a new plan to satisfy the applicant and the neighbors.
Is there any way to bring the applicant back up and see if he would make concessions, or can he change his at this time?
Yes, sir. So it was advertised for the R1, which is a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre. There's certainly an option for the gentleman to negotiate downward. We can't. So if he came in and said, "Well, I don't want to do R1, I want to do R2," that would be increasing, going from 4. But it was advertised as 40 units an acre. So certainly going down to an RR1 half-acre lot can certainly be a feasible option at this board as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners.
Sir?
We wouldn't have a problem with that. The survey that we did, the plan for this plot is 2 lots, and parcel A is 0.55 acres, so we'd be open to that as well.
So the recommendation to do the half acre, the R1? RR1? Yeah.
So we need to make a motion to change?
Yes, sir, you would make a motion for the RR1 if that's agreeable with the board.
Okay, I will make a motion for RR1 to be used in this instance.
And I will second it.
So the motion is to approve under the RR1 zoning. And it's been properly seconded, so it will go to a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. It is recommended to the Board of County Commissioners at RR1. The last item on the agenda, case 2021 R046, Mr. Jimmy Potts, is requesting to rezone 18.57 acres in total from Ag RR, Rural Residential Agriculture, to HCD, Highway Commercial Development, and change the future land use from Agriculture Rural Residential to Commercial. The subject site is located on the 5500 block of Woodbine Road in Pace. The current zoning is rural residential agriculture. The proposed zoning is highway commercial development. This is an aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. This is a close-up aerial of the subject site. The existing land use is agriculture and single-family residential, with commercial to the north, single-family residential and vacant to the east, agriculture to the south, and industrial, vacant, commercial, and office to the west. The future land use is agricultural rural residential. The proposed future land use is commercial. There have been several zoning board cases in the surrounding area. In fact, the northern portion of this parcel actually got a conditional use for storage just last year. This is, this is looking south down Woodbine Road. The site is to the left. This is looking west. The site is behind us. This is looking north up Woodbine Road. The site is to the right. And this is looking into the site from Woodbine Road. This is looking into the southern portion of the site. This is a conceptual site layout submitted by the applicant. And that's all I have.
My name is Jimmy Potts, 7280 Foxborough Circle. I'm here to support or propose the there's a rezoning here from Ag RR to highway commercial. The intended use is self-storage and RV and boat storage. Sorry. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't see an issue at all with this piece of property. It's located on a major thoroughfare. It's within a 500 foot or half a mile with a major intersection. I mean, from what I can see, it's commercial development, period.
I agree. Can I make a motion to approve? It's getting late. Any opposition? You thought about it. All right, motion is on the table for approval. Can I get a second?
I second it.
in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The recommendation to approval will go to the board in 2 weeks.
Thank you all for your time.
Sir, I just 2 weeks, you need to go be here for the Board of County Commissioner meeting. And just as a note, I see that about 5 3/4 or 6 acres is actually located within overhead power lines. You need to certainly make contact with Gulf Power and Florida Power and Light, because since the acquisition of Florida Power and Light from Gulf Power, they've had a lot of denials. So make sure you make that connection.
I've been speaking with Scott Gordon.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Still my point of contact.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Chairman?
All right, can we please clear the room so we can close the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, we always like to end the meeting by going over the results for the Board of County Commissioners, just so the board, the zoning board has a feeling, kind of an indicator of what's been occurring with the Board of County Commissioners and any discrepancies between this board and that board for your future reference. The first item was a rezoning that occurred back in 2006. It had conditions placed upon it. 4 conditions. One condition was that it was limited to a maximum of 108 units. It had to be connected to sewer, and a privacy fence installed on the eastern side of the subdivision, and the development had to have connectivity to the north and the west. They brought that back for discussion with the Board of County Commissioners to amend those conditions. The board upheld the requirement that the development be limited to a maximum of 108 units and the condition that it be connected to sewer. This property is actually located just west of the wellfield protection area and actually just almost across the street from the horse case that you had tonight. They're off of South Airport Boulevard. Moving on, it was a pit rezoning that was proposed up in the J area. The Board of County Commissioners upheld the zoning board's recommendation for denial. So that was one that it did go to the public hearing. They denied the variances and the request for the pit. It was interesting at that particular case that the applicant showed up and was actually speaking of processing and manufacturing of blocks. So it wasn't just a pit, but it was also a new introductory item for the manufacturing, which was not presented to this board in that fashion. Moving on, we had the case by Pace Water Systems on Bell Lane. The zoning board recommended approval with some conditions. The BOCC approved without objection, and no conditions were recommended on that. The zoning board recommended approval of the proposed school there at Tanglewood and Willard Norris. The Board of County Commissioners actually tabled that one for further discussion. They wanted to understand what the proposed Jubilee development may have involved in that as a potential school site. Yes, ma'am.
We need the room cleared, please. Thank you.
All right, moving on. We had 42 acres of industrial zoning there off of the south of Sterling Way. It was recommended for denial by the zoning board. That was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. There was an industrial rezoning south of Sterling Way in Mulat. It was actually 110 acres. Proposed change was to go from ag and single-family residential to industrial. The zoning board recommended approval, and the Board of County Commissioners recommended approval without objection to transmit that to the state of Florida. And I think there was one more here. And the last one was the Sterling Fibers case. That was the one that Mr. Norris spoke about at the very beginning. That was recommended for denial without objection by the zoning board. It was tabled by the Board of County Commissioners and then brought back at their last meeting and was approved without objection for that to allow a pit and for the M2 zoning on that piece of property. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make one statement real quick.
Sure.
You know, guys, I sit on this board a long time ago, and a lot of members used to get offended when the decision was overturned by the commissioners. A lot takes place a lot of times between, and y'all, as y'all know, from the time we vote on an issue and the commissioners meeting. So please don't take offense, and I don't, when the commissioners overturn our decision. Usually there's a change in venue. And you know, I know y'all are well aware of that. I just like to say that, you know, I don't take offense at all when the commissioners have new evidence, something new, and new information is presented. So I know sometimes, you know, you might say, well, why I'm up here, and we spend a lot of time up here, but they usually get a little more information than we do sometimes, and they have time to work these things out. We educate the public in a lot of cases, y'all know that, and what they need to do and the concessions they need to make before getting to the commission. So it's a process, I feel, that really works. That's all I have to say.
Next board meeting is October the 14th. Same bat channel, same bat location.
October 14th?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's the second Thursday. Okay, gotcha.
And everybody got their updated land development codes, correct?
10-4.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn without objection.